This is a 600-mile fault line running just off the coast from Northern California up to British Columbia, where two massive tectonic plates are actively colliding. Specifically, the heavy Juan de Fuca ocean plate is shoving its way underneath the North American continental plate. But they aren't sliding smoothly. Right now, they are locked together, building immense frictional pressure. Because the plates continue to push against each other, the rock will eventually snap. A catastrophic rupture of magnitude 9.0 or higher is a geographic certainty. You might have heard the most common risk model for this fault. There is a roughly 37% chance of a major Cascadia earthquake happening in the next 50 years. Framing the risk this way triggers a psychological blind spot called temporal myopia. We hear 50 years and instinctively interpret the threat as a distant, ignorable problem. This timeline shows the intervals between historic earthquakes in the southern region of the fault over the past 4,000 years. The longest recorded gap between major ruptures in this area was 291 years. The last major Cascadia earthquake happened in the year 1700. We are currently 324 years into the current quiet period. We have already surpassed the longest historical interval. Tectonic pressure does not dissipate over time. The strain builds every single day, making the eventual rupture more likely and more severe with each passing year. When the fault finally unzips, the immediate coastline will experience subsidence. The landmass itself drops 3 to 6 feet, bringing the ocean permanently inland. This sudden drop, combined with the extreme displacement of the ocean floor, will move a massive volume of water. A tsunami wave up to 100 feet high will crash onto the Pacific Northwest shores in just 15 to 20 minutes. This map illustrates the anticipated damage zones. The red area denotes extreme tsunami inundation, while orange represents heavy structural damage. Coastal highways are susceptible to landslides. When they fail, surviving communities will be trapped in isolated islands, completely cut off. The geography of the coast becomes a trap, eliminating traditional evacuation routes and leaving local residents entirely on their own. In the inland valleys, the shaking lasts between 5 and 7 minutes. This prolonged shaking causes liquefaction. Seismic waves force groundwater upward through saturated soils, turning solid ground into a liquid slurry. The earth shifts and gives way. Roads fracture, buildings tip, and buried infrastructure like fuel pipelines become buoyant and break through the surface. For millions of inland residents, the primary threat is the sudden, widespread failure of the ground beneath their homes and roads. Grave. As the shockwave reaches Portland, the region's dense urban core faces a human-made catastrophe. The critical energy infrastructure hub on the Willamette River is a massive network of storage tanks containing over 90% of Oregon's liquid fuel. It was built before modern seismic standards, sitting squarely on soils highly prone to liquefaction and lateral spreading. This chart shows the scale of the predicted fuel release. A major Cascadia rupture could trigger a spill of up to 193 million gallons, a volume comparable to the BP Deepwater Horizon environmental disaster. The collapse of the CEI hub will unleash a cascading environmental disaster, flooding the river with hazardous materials, and cutting off the energy supply needed for emergency response and recovery. Federal and state assessments project upwards of 13,000 fatalities, over 1 million displaced residents, and more than $30 billion in direct economic losses. Despite understanding this risk for decades, the Pacific Northwest's critical infrastructure is dangerously unprepared. Leaving hospitals, operation centers, and facilities exposed in an inundation zone eliminates a community's capacity to respond to a crisis. Surviving a megathrust earthquake requires shifting from passive awareness to aggressive defensive engineering. Some communities are already adapting. The Shoalwater Bay Indian Tribe recently completed the first vertical evacuation tower on the coast, and state governments are beginning to mandate seismic retrofits for critical administrative buildings. Technologies like the Shake Alert early warning system detect initial seismic waves, buying the public and automated safety systems precious seconds to react before the heavy shaking arrives. But infrastructure is only part of the equation. Currently, only about 5% of the population, has the 2 weeks of food, water, and emergency supplies required to survive an extended loss of utilities. The Pacific Northwest faces an unavoidable geological event. To survive it, we have to stop treating the Cascadia Subduction Zone as a distant myth and start engineering our homes and communities for the reality beneath our feet.